Top 7 raised vegetable beds with drip irrigation. There is a subtle but very clear shift in how people view their gardens. They no longer just want a beautiful space, but also want it to create real value. And that is why raised vegetable beds combined with drip irrigation systems are becoming one of the most sought-after choices today. But the point is that not everyone does it right. Many people spend their whole weekend building crude wooden frames, filling them with soil, and planting without even thinking about location, materials, or harmony with the overall garden. As a result, they look more like a temporary project than a part of the design. And then after a few initial weeks of excitement, manual watering every day becomes a burden. Have you ever experienced that feeling? Starting with full enthusiasm and then gradually neglecting it as the weather heats up? That is exactly why a drip irrigation system is not an option, but a mandatory requirement if you want this garden to last long-term. With just a simple timer, water will be supplied regularly, plants will grow steadily, and you no longer have to worry every time you are away. But the question is whether you are building a real garden or just experimenting with a passing idea. Because the difference between the two lies in how you design it from the very start. Top 6. One good overhead structure. Most yards have one very recognizable thing in common, which is that they are simply a flat surface with a few pieces of furniture placed on top, with no focal point, no sense of space, and more importantly, no reason for you to stay long. That is where an overhead structure changes everything. When you create a ceiling for an outdoor area, you are not just adding shade, but also creating a real room. A place with a clear purpose, where you want to sit down and spend time. But what makes many people fail is choosing lightweight, prefabricated pergolas, placed directly on the ground without a solid foundation. Initially looking fine, but after only a few years, the structure starts to wobble, the joints open up, and the entire construction loses its safety. So are you investing in a long-term solution or just a temporary item, if done correctly, with sturdy posts fixed with concrete and durable materials? This structure can last for decades, and when you plant additional climbing plants, it will gradually blend into the garden, becoming a natural part instead of an object placed on top. Can you imagine the feeling of sitting under there on a summer afternoon? And if you do not have that yet, perhaps you are missing out on the most important part of the outdoor space. Top 5 naturalistic planting. There was a period when gardens were defined by absolute tidiness, perfectly manicured hedges, plants lined up straight, and everything strictly controlled. But that trend is gradually giving way to a new style, more natural, softer, and more vibrant. Planting in a naturalistic style does not mean letting everything grow randomly, but rather creating a deliberate system where plant species are chosen to fit the environment and arranged rhythmically. You will see ornamental grasses swaying in the wind, flowers blooming seasonally, and the garden constantly changing over time. The interesting thing is that after establishing, this type of planting requires less maintenance, less watering, and less intervention. But the biggest mistake many people make is thinking that just planting many different types of plants is enough. In reality, the most beautiful gardens always have a clear structure behind them, with a few dominant species repeated to create cohesion. So are you designing or just planting impulsively? And can your garden tell a story through every season? Top 4 layered landscape lighting. When night falls, most gardens almost disappear, no matter how beautiful they are during the day. And that is because very few people actually design lighting in a true sense. They install a few path lights, maybe add a wall wash, and think that is enough. But light is not just for seeing, but also for creating emotion. A layered lighting system can completely transform a space without changing any physical elements. The first layer is low lighting to define paths and ensure safety. The second layer is mid-lighting to create depth and highlights. And the final layer is atmospheric lighting to bring a sense of warmth. But there is a small detail many overlook, which is color temperature. When you mix warm and cool light in the same space, the overall feel becomes uncomfortable without you understanding why. So are you actually taking advantage of your garden at night or just wasting half of its usable time? Top 3, a fire feature done properly. Fire always has a special pull. It brings a sense of warmth, connection, and makes people want to gather together. That is why fire elements in the yard are increasingly popular. But the interesting thing is that many people choose the wrong way to implement them. Fixed fire pits look very impressive in photos, but cause many problems in reality. Smoke does not escape, seating positions are fixed, and cleaning becomes an unpleasant chore. Even when you want to change the garden layout, this structure becomes an obstacle. So what is the solution? A high-quality portable fire bowl can bring a similar experience, but is much more flexible. You can change the position, put it away when not in use, and adjust for wind direction. The most important question before placing any fire source is which way the wind blows. Because if you ignore that, you will have a beautiful design that is never used. And is that what you want? Top 2, native and climate-adapted planting. In the context of an increasingly unpredictable climate, plant selection is no longer just a matter of aesthetics, but a long-term strategy. Native and climate-adapted plants are becoming the foundation of modern garden design because they do not need much care to survive. They are suited to the area's rainfall, soil, and temperature, which means less watering, less fertilizer, and less risk. But many people still hesitate because they think native plants are not beautiful or lack diversity. The reality is quite the opposite. When selected and arranged correctly, they can create gardens that are both beautiful and sustainable. Additionally, they attract pollinators like bees and butterflies, helping the entire garden ecosystem function more effectively. So are you trying to maintain an expensive garden or building a self-operating system over time? Top 1, seamless indoor-outdoor connection. This is the element that most people do not think about from the start, but is the thing that decides the entire experience. The seamless connection between indoor and outdoor space is not a product you buy, but a way you design. Many gardens are created as separate projects, unrelated to the interior furniture. And the result is when you step outside, you feel like you are in a completely different place. That fracture makes everything feel disjointed. But when done right, the garden becomes a natural extension of the house. Materials, proportions, and layout are linked together. And most importantly, the viewpoint from inside. Stand at the place you are most frequently in the house and look out. What do you see? That is the most important frame of the garden. But unfortunately, it is often overlooked. If you can change that, every other element will become more meaningful. And the final question for you is whether you are designing a garden to look at or to live in.